If you asked me in March 2020 what the next 2 years would look like, I would not have anticipated sitting here today saying, dude, we're in the middle. Well, the financial press are telling us we're in the middle of the biggest M&A boom in history in Australia.
So there's two things that I'm seeing at the moment. One I think is a reality and the other one's an illusion. So the first thing that's a reality is a talent shortage, right? Or you may even call it talent inflation. The other thing that I see, which is an illusion, is people who are in high growth businesses at the moment telling themselves it's all because of them.
Hi, this is Andre from Verity Consulting. Thank you for clicking on the link to watch this video of our Uncommon Lunch, which is filmed in a 3-part series. In this specific video, you'll hear me ask the panelists about what they've seen in the marketplace across Australia and also across Southeast Asia in terms of how companies are performing, what mergers and acquisition trends are actually happening, and what coaching initiatives they're putting in place to help businesses succeed, and also what learnings that they've had over the last 12 or so months. Hope you enjoy that video. So, why are we here today? Well, just over 18 months ago now, I think, we started with this idea at Verity, and our tagline at Verity, if you don't know, is uncommon sense. And so we thought, okay, what if we had a lunch with a bunch of cool people there, and then we bring a bunch of speakers together over time and people who have achieved uncommon results in life and or in business. And then we do some interviews with them, have conversations with them, and through the conversation, tease out of them the steps that they took that led to those uncommon results. And we do it in a way that makes perfect sense to everyone else so that we can emulate those steps in our own lives and our own businesses as well to have similar results. And thankfully, we weren't the only ones who thought it was a good idea because you all are here today. So thank you for that. That's great. Would have been a great lunch without you, but even better with you here. It would have been a little bit lonely without you. So thank you for joining. Thank you for coming. And also thank you for listening to these guys. So with that in mind, if I can get you guys to the stage, and I'll do a quick round of introductions. Okay, so while a few people think to themselves, this is like the trailer to a movie, so I can quickly sneak off to the bar and get a drink while he's telling us who's speaking. I'll quickly tell you who's speaking today. So to my to my right, closest to me is a guy called Chris Mundy. Now, Chris Mundy, apart from being a nice guy, because he's also one of the brand ambassadors at the CEO Sleep Out, he's also the founder and managing director of a company called Friday Capital. Now, if you've never heard of Friday Capital before, they're a mergers and acquisitions firm who work on both buy side and sell side. And before I met Chris, I didn't know what that actually meant. So if you don't know, come and ask him later. They also work on capital raising and also strategic consulting. And over the last 5 years in their existence, or it says 6 years on LinkedIn?
Yeah, we're 6 years now.
So over the last 6 years and 7 months, according to LinkedIn, they have completed over 100 transactions, over 100. And each of those transactions being valued at an average of between 5 million and 300 million. They have done over $5 billion worth of transactions.
So next week will be nearly 6.
Next week, you'll be nearly 6.
Nearly 6 billion in transactions.
That's pretty good. Is anything happening this week you can tell us about that? Is that or
Absolutely not.
how quickly can we get some NDAs for everyone to sign? I don't know. Well, somebody. And that's across 15 countries, mate. Congratulations. That's a fantastic effort. Now, Chris talks about the fact that he's spent his working career in 3 different stages. So the first one was working for 2 of the big 4 accounting companies, which he did over a 7-year period. The second part was working within the private equity space. Again, he did that for 7 years. And the last 7 or so years has been at Friday Capital. We didn't rehearse this, but I got one little question because I just remembered you said something when we did do the rehearsal, and it's about helping your dad to list his company or something. Did I get that right?
When I was at university, so my father had transitioned from corporate life to, he was an entrepreneur, but had spent 20 years in large organizations. As a university student, studying finance, I got the opportunity to sit alongside my father, watching him go through a process of listing a business he'd been building for about 6 years. And that had a big influence on me because still around family dinners, my father and I talk about how that listing was entirely driven by the advisors and their objectives and had nothing to do with what our family wanted to achieve and what my father wanted to achieve in that business. And that's been one of the biggest influences for me in how we design and create the advice we give our clients.
Well said, mate. It's a free advertising opportunity as well, which I didn't realize at the time. Now, I've just been told you're about to fall off the back there, so you might just want to move your seat forward a little bit. Whilst you're doing that, Byron Rinstra, did I say that right? On my far right over there. I thought the two consultants would sandwich the other two on the stage and think it's worked out quite well. It looks pretty good from this end. We both got white shirts on, so well done. So Byron is one of the two founders and also the managing director of a company called B Partners. Now, B Partners is a senior leader advisory firm that primarily focuses on founder-led organizations. And they work with companies in that situation all around the world. He's an extremely intelligent person, but also a great conversationalist. And if you ever find yourself in the CBD and you don't mind Tattersalls Club, which is not as bad as what you might think it is, or H, whatever, he's normally hanging around there. And that's where we caught up last time. So in addition to being the MD, I can also tell you that he started his career, it says on LinkedIn, in 1998, where he was the manager of internal communications at Brisbane City Council. He also did the same thing in New South Wales. I almost actually closed my browser at this stage because I thought it was really boring, but it gets better. From 1998 through to 2019, over about a 21-year or so period, he worked for a number of companies which, let's just say, all of us in the room today would recognize. He worked for all of those companies at an international level, at a directorship level as well. And those companies are spread out across telco, banking, recruitment companies. So it's more so search and select recruitment companies, a number of advisory firms. And he did so in Australia, UK, Singapore, and also Hong Kong. Now, there's one thing that's not on LinkedIn, which I thought I'd get him to talk to you about as well, because it's, I thought it's quite interesting. And that is the fact that you're an avid cyclist. Is that right?
Yeah, so I still do a little bit of cycling, but I started racing professionally back in the 90s when drug abuse in cycling was running at its hottest because drug use was about 5 years above testing abilities. So the peloton was absolutely racked with drugs. And it was interesting because you saw these little stick guys weighing 53 kilos driving up the road, sort of putting out 700 kilowatts. And you're thinking, how's that possible? And then you realize, well, it's not really. So I had a choice to either get on a serious drug program or stop cycling. So I stopped cycling.
Well done, mate. Fantastic. And you've also got 3 young boys, I think you said?
I got 3 little boys who also love bikes. And the good thing about children that love bikes is every time I buy them one, I buy myself one as well.
Fantastic. Talking about kids, I'm going to tell you about Alborz's children in just a second. So Alborz Falah is right in the, so towards the middle there, as you can see. Now, in case you don't recognize Alborz, I'm sure you've heard of a company called Car Advice, which was sold to, now if you don't read his LinkedIn profile, Car Advice was sold to Channel 9 for $62.8 million. Is that right?
That's perfectly right.
Okay, good. Thank you. It's taken about 5 goes to get it right. In fact, the first time when we rehearsed this, Alborz stopped me midway and said, Andre, it wasn't 35 million, it was 62. And then today he said it wasn't 62, it was $62.8 million. So I'm glad I got that right.
Well, if the ATO could keep count, why can't you?
Exactly. So founded that business in 2006 before it was sold in 2017. One of the things Alborz will tell you about a little bit later is the fact that he can't sit still long enough. He doesn't phrase it that way, but it's further evidenced by the fact that he started Car Expert in 2020, early 2020, because growing one business, selling it successfully isn't good enough, right? So you have to do it twice. So in the last 2 years, where he's gotten up to with that. Now, Car Expert, in case you don't know, is on YouTube. There's a website for it. There's also 2 experience centers. Well, there's one in Sydney and another one's about to be opened in Melbourne. During this time, they've also gone from 0 to 192,000 subscribers on YouTube. And they've also, my kids love that, by the way. Last night, I had to tell him to go to bed multiple times because of you, by the way. But anyway. And the reason why is because my kid was one of the 2.4 million unique visitors to the site each month. I think that deserves a round of applause just in itself, doesn't it? Congratulations, mate.
Thanks, mate.
At the end of last year, the business also raised $25 million. And as part of that raising capital experience, they also had Channel 7 join as one of the investors with the business. Now, in addition to that, because it's not enough, keeps going, they also won some awards. I wanted to check this with you. The Mumbrella Awards. Now, if you don't know what the Mumbrella Awards are, you're not in the media industry. If you were, you would know it's kind of like the Grammys. And they were nominated, this is the current business in the last 2 years, for Event of the Year, Launch of the Year, Editor of the Year, and Website of the Year, going up against news.com.au. Now, I know for a fact that they won and smashed news.com.au. Well done, congratulations, mate. Fantastic.
Thanks, mate.
So I was going to tell you a bit more. One other thing I would say is that Alborz was in Sydney last night, watched the Socceroos unfortunately lose against Japan, flew up this morning for the lunch, leaving his kids in Sydney, and he's flying back to go and see them again after the lunch today. So thank you for the effort. Really appreciate it, mate.
No worries, not at all.
So for all of those you struggled to find parking or thought it was hard to get here, suck it up, okay? So with all of that said, thank you guys for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. I know you also flew up from Sydney, especially for the lunch, Chris. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. Give me a microphone. I'll always find something to talk about.
I thought that one of the things we should start talking about, because you guys weren't here for the last lunch, but I said to everyone who was here, COVID has done a lot of amazing things, weird and wonderful, sad, happy, and all sorts to a lot of business owners around the country and around the world for that matter. And as much as there's a lot of sad stories, there's also been a lot of positive stories that have come out of COVID. So companies that have pivoted, companies that have found themselves in the hand sanitization business or toilet roll manufacturing, whatever the case may be, we've profited from the experience quite a bit. And so a follow-on launch after the last one that we had is that I said, I'll get a panel together and we'll talk about the fact that now that we're underway and we are actually making money out of this thing, how do we increase the value of our business so that we can either become an acquisition target if we're a business owner, so that we can grow by acquiring other businesses, or even if we don't, so we can have a business that's turning over more money, that's more sustainable and can become a multi-generational business. And so I thought to have you guys together as a panel, somebody who's lived that, somebody who consults to businesses in that regard, and somebody who helps companies to achieve exactly that, you guys would make up a great panel to talk towards that. So before we go into a bit more detail with that, Chris, why don't you tell us, I guess, what's happening out there in the landscape from your perspective, from a mergers and acquisitions perspective, with companies going through exactly these phases?
Sure. If you asked me in March 2020 what the next 2 years would look like, I would not have anticipated sitting here today saying, dude, we're in the middle. Well, the financial press are telling us we're in the middle of the biggest M&A boom in history in Australia and actually globally as well. So last year there were $306 billion of transactions done in Australia. That was a 225% increase on the prior year. And yeah, that's double the 10-year average for M&A activity. But that's dollar value. If we look at the number of transactions, last year they were down 4%. So total number of deals done was less than the year before, and well below, it's actually the lowest point in the last 10 years. So what we've got a boom in mega deals. So we had 5 deals last year in Australia. Sorry, not we did. There were 5 deals in Australia last year, over 20 billion Australian dollars in value. That's never happened before. But then, so the question is, what's happening? So what's driving that? And I think we get to that. We might talk about that a little bit later. But the market's active. We're seeing mid-market activity. So we define mid-market as businesses with a value of 10 million to 250 million. So I get that it's a big bracket. But activity in that segment was up 20% last year. So where the market's missing is in the sub $10 million deals. Those deals have almost stopped completely for 2 years, which is unusual. That was unanticipated. But there's lots of underlying themes as to why this is happening. The financial press will give you the headlines, right? So I'm a big believer, don't believe necessarily the headlines. There's always lots of legs spinning underneath the duck. But they'll tell you interest rates are driving M&A. I don't actually believe that. We're seeing lots of other themes that are the key drivers. In the mid-market, the biggest theme we're seeing is people that I spoke to in 2008 and 2009 during the GFC saying, oh, geez, I've halved the value of my personal wealth. I'm going to spend the next 5 years rebuilding it. And they did, and they rebuilt it. And then they held on and they kept building and kept building. And then we have COVID hit. And so those people started to rush for the exits. We're seeing the transition of ownership to multi-generational family business not really occurring these days, or not as much as it used to. So we're seeing first generation business builders selling out rather than handing on. And we're seeing digitization. There's this rush for digital assets. Everyone buying into that. That is definitely a boom. You'd argue whether it's a bubble. But then there's this underlying core of, let's call them just regular businesses in Australia that are always transacting. There are industrials where there's economies of scale, where aggregation always makes sense because you get cost synergies from it. And big players buy little players. And we're seeing that theme has continued. There was actually a pause in the market for acquisition activity as a result of COVID, lasted 6 weeks. I can tell you March 23rd, 2020, we had everything stop. And 6 weeks later, we were flat out. It was a concerning 6 weeks because, me, like everyone else in our industry, was thinking what's going to happen. But we didn't anticipate everyone turning the corner and saying, let's get active again. Let's just look through what COVID means to business valuation.
No, that's really good. Thank you for that, for the insights as well. Byron, you coach companies going through some of the journey to what Chris is talking about. What are you seeing from your end?
Yeah, so there's two things that I'm seeing at the moment. One I think is a reality and the other one's an illusion. So the first thing that's a reality is a talent shortage, right? Or you may even call it talent inflation. Everybody's growing, everybody needs the same sorts of resources. The job market's gone nuts, both onshore and offshore, and there's a real shortage of high quality individuals that are going to stick around for the long game. And that's one of the things that really bothers founders, is not being able to find high quality people, because that's the way they build businesses. So that's a real thing, right? So we're definitely seeing that. The other thing that I see, which is an illusion, is people who are in high growth businesses at the moment telling themselves it's all because of them. Right? So rising tide floats all boats. So we'll talk to founders and go, well, I must be amazing because look at my business, I'm growing at 30%. Yeah, you're growing at 30%, market's growing at 40%, so actually you're a bit shit. So one of the jobs that we have is to sort of pull...
He charges to give that advice as well, just so you know.
Charged by the minute. So one of our jobs, we think, is to pull founders' heads out of their own asses with regard to sort of going, well, I must be amazing because look at the growth of my business. And that's the problem with success, is success in an enterprise front for a founder-led business is often difficult to deconstruct from what's you versus what's the market, what's accidental versus what's intentional. And going back to the first point around founders want high-quality talent, they often also get seduced by super loyal individuals who often don't want to tell them the truth anymore. Alborz, you're doing an amazing job. And then in a year from now, Alborz may not be doing an amazing job, but I work for him and I love him. So I'll say, yeah, you're still doing an amazing job, but we're losing money. Yeah, but you're amazing. Well, no, stop it.
I've got a job for you, mate.
I'm done. I've got my first client, so we're away.
It's a good point, and I noticed you nodding your head a few times there, Alborz. You've started 18 companies in your life so far, so I'm sure you've got a bit of information you can add to this from an owner's perspective.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Look, it's been a really tough last 2 years. We launched Car Expert literally into the pandemic, so we launched it in late March 2020 when we thought the world was going to end for a little while, and it was actually, in retrospect, the best time for us to ever launch a business because all of our competitors stopped. They all stopped. They all were trying to cut costs. They were trying to work out how to survive. There's so many, the whole morale collapsed. While we were, when you launch a new business, there's a honeymoon period. We took that opportunity really well and really launched into the market and took a lot of ground from them in that process. But I really echo what's been said already in regards to talent. that's been our biggest issue for the last 2 years. A lot of people, I think, have reassessed their life a little bit to an extent. People are keen to work 9 to 5 and go home. I can tell you, I never built a business from 9 to 5. It just doesn't work like that. And I kind of need those employees to an extent to not work the same hours, but sort of believe in the business outside of just being a 9 to 5 job. So that's been really interesting for me. But look, the whole pandemic situation for us, the car market's the worst it's ever been with stock supplies and all sorts of issues. But we managed to build a business that's gone back to the core of what we believe is what the audience is after, rather than the sort of corporate nature of things. And that's something I really missed towards the end of my last business, when it became this big sort of entity. So to be able to go back to creating a small business that's nimble, can quickly do things, has been fantastic. My biggest struggle continues to be people. I just can't get the right people in the right places. But from an M&A perspective, like our fundraising for the last 2 years has not been overtly difficult, to be perfectly honest. Like, we were oversubscribed in the last round. I got to correct you, it was at 25 mil valuation, not 25 mil raised. So, we were oversubscribed quite substantially in the last.
Keep getting it wrong. I'm sorry, mate.
That's all right, mate. You got the last one right, so it's all good. But yeah, like, we're going back into capital raising next month actually, and the interest is already so high. So I think the market is pretty hot for things that are working and make sense. But from a founder perspective, man, like, yeah, if I could just get more talented people on board, that would be amazing.
Fantastic. I had a number of people sending me text messages. I'm really sorry I can't be there to see the Alborz or see the boards or see there's all these nicknames going around for you, by the way. So